Excited to have a new and improved OST strategic plan in hand. And as we work towards bold and ambitious systems level OST improvements on the behalf of children and youth across the district, this will be a meeting where we seek to set the parameters for the current and future commission meetings as we move forward. There is lots of exciting and great work to come.
And I'm going to stop sharing so that my face is not on the screen and try this again. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, I thought it was intentional. Yeah. Sorry. It was a nice visual.
Oh, no.
All right. Sounds good. Let's see. Okay. Okay, commissioners, as usual, the first item on the agenda is the call to order. So the Commission on Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes is called to order at 6:04 p.m. Now, once again, commissioners, when it is time for public commentary, all pre-registered commentators will have 3 minutes per person. We do have a timer that will be shown on the screen, so please try your best to adhere to that timer because we do have a pretty packed agenda today. A lot of great things to discuss. So if we do have to cut you off, don't take offense. We're not trying to be rude. We're just trying to get through our meeting. Now, when it is your time to speak, the OST team will unmute you and notify you when it is your turn to speak. If a commissioner is unmuted for conversation, please remember to put yourselves on mute when not speaking to reduce the background noise. When making or seconding a motion, please remember to identify yourself. Although we all know each other at this point, it's for the sake of the minute so we can keep that going and functioning properly. For the same reason, all votes will be taken by roll call as we usually do. And we do have 2 registered public member speakers. Please note that in the interest of time in the agenda, we will have to limit the commentary to 3 minutes per person. And so we will signal once that 3 minutes is up. So thank you. And let's see. Okay. We have 2 registered public speakers today. First, we have Lynette Bradford Preston, Director of Operations at Fauntleroy Community Enrichment Center.
Lynette, are you here? Going once? If not, we can return. Going twice, Lynette. We can move on to the second one, and then if hopefully she comes in by then.
Okay, sounds good. We'll do. And our second speaker is it's like Riley Danoco, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Riley is a senior policy analyst at DC Action.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Peacock. I'll just get started then. Good evening, members of the OST Commission, and thanks for allowing me to speak at tonight's meeting, and welcome back, Dr. Lowe. My name is Riley Danelko. I'm a senior policy analyst focusing on OST at DC Action, which is home of the DC OST Coalition. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of DC Action, but my comments are informed by feedback from members of the coalition who are Learn 24 grantees. I'm going to focus on 2 topics, one, the forthcoming OST grants, and second, the Universal OST bill, which I know is on the agenda for later. So as some of you know, last year Learn 24 made some changes to grant requirements, seemingly without prior engagement with nonprofits who rely on this funding to serve youth. Some of those concerns that came up, the coalition shared with Learn 24 over the past year, and we were hopeful when Learn 24 reached out to grantees in the coalition for discussions on FY25 requirements. And we're pleased that the office has committed to acting on some of our recommendations to address grantee concerns. While we await the release of the FY25 application, I'd like to share with the Commission some of the following recommendations to ensure equitable and effective grant funding in FY25. 1, continue to fund community-based organizations who have access to a much more limited pool of public funding than do LEAs. 2nd, continue engagement with stakeholders around dosage and grant requirements. The allowance for a dosage adjustment request is a step in the right direction and may work as a short-term solution, but the office must continue to engage with grantees about whether maintaining this increased dosage is actually meeting the needs of DC youth and families, especially when it comes to high school students. Third, fund small nonprofits equitably. These organizations deserve to receive the same ratio of funding per students as larger organizations. Fourth, increase the use of site visits as a grantee evaluation tool. This would not only deepen Learn24's understanding of how programs work on a daily basis, but expand the qualitative data that's needed to inform grantee evaluations. And five, provide capacity building grants if and when the budget permits. So I only have a few seconds left, so I'll just move on to the universal OST legislation. As many of you know, DC Action is proud to have partnered with Councilmember Fruman to release this legislation. And I'd just like to share with the commission that, or assure you all that the goal of the Amendment Act is in alignment with the goals of the commission, the goals that were set in the updated strategic plan. This bill provides a legislative framework for how the commission and the office can achieve this ambitious goal. And as OST commissioners, your expertise and input on this bill is of critical importance. So as you discuss that tonight, I encourage you to keep in mind that this amendment can and should be a tool for helping the office lead government-wide efforts to expand access to OST. Councilmember Fruman's team has also asked us to relay the message that they are open to discussing improvements to the legislation with OST commissioners. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Okay, thank you for your commentary and thank you for adhering to the timer and stopping on time. We appreciate that. But yeah, definitely thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your feedback and look forward to hearing more from you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sure.
And Riley, if you can forward your testimony to us, that would be great, just so we make sure that we capture all the points.
Definitely. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I'll do that.
Great. Okay. Now, commissioners, are there any questions or comments for Riley? Looks like we do have a hand raised.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yep.
Yeah, let me come up here. I guess I just wanted to affirm or back up, particularly I think the last comments that Riley was making around the universal out of school time bill. I think it's an incredibly exciting opportunity for us, and as Riley was saying, is reflective of the goals that we set in our strategic plan. And while I know there hasn't been a hearing set yet for the legislation, I hope that we can all work together to align to, I think, really help us level up and deliver more for kids and families.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback, Commissioner Hanson. Sounds good. Commissioners, any other questions or comments for Riley?
Hey, this is Bijan.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to second that the concerns that Riley shared about the dosage requirements are also ones that the committee of the whole in my office has heard quite a great deal of, and wanted to add on top of that, I think anything we can do to examine ways to simplify, I think, the application and grant process for grant applicants could go a long way in broadening the reach of the Learn24 office.
Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. Thank you. Sure. Okay. Commissioners, any additional comments, questions, or concerns before we move on? All right. Well,
I had one question. Sure. There was, I forgot, I'm not saying it verbatim, but there was some language around having the small nonprofits have the same cost per student as the larger competitions. Can you share more as to why or the rationale behind that when they may not necessarily serve the same number of students? Help us understand the rationale behind a smaller organization having the same allocation, whether it's cost per student or award amount, when the number of kids served may not potentially be the same.
Yeah, so a few of the smaller grassroots organizations have voiced a lot of frustration with feeling like the ratio of funding per student that they're getting isn't really sufficient to meet the amount of students that they're expected to serve. Or like, for example, if they are um, applying for a grant and they don't receive the maximum amount of funding, like the 80K, for example, in the small nonprofit competition, the minimum amount of students to be served still stays the same because of just the minimum of that competition. And then there becomes sort of an, excuse me, an imbalance of funding or just like an insufficient amount of funding to meet the minimum, but because they're not getting the full amount of the funding. It's just something that a couple of groups have brought up.
Just to be clear, they only have to serve 15 youth. So if that's part of like where they elect to serve more youth within the amount that is being offered, it has to, they need to sometimes plan that on the front end as well and not elect to serve 100 students, for example, if their maximum is 40,000. That can be some of what we have seen because they are only required to serve 15 as opposed to our other organizations that have to serve 50.
Riley,
Just for
thank you
clarification.
Riley, thank you for sharing. I was just curious as to your thoughts because the alternate then if they don't apply for the SNP competition is to apply for a larger competition. But I was just wondering what the rationale is besides being disgruntled for wanting additional funding beyond the SNP competition or the large competition if they choose to apply to the large competition to see if they could throw their hat in the ring, so to speak. It's not a question, just a comment.
Okay, thank you. And on that note, it looks like we also have a note in the chat from Elias Benda from Council Member Fruman's office, who worked with DC Action to draft the Universal OST legislation. Let's see, about someone who is not registered making a public comment. And the answer to that is yes, we do allow public comment that is not pre-registered if we do have time, which looks like we do have time today since we had one speaker not appear. Elias, would you like to speak?
Can we confirm that the other speaker is not here just to confirm before we move forward?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's see.
Is it Lynette? Lynette, are you here?
Oh yeah, I see her there now.
If you are,
Yes, I
Okay.
am here.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
However, yes, no problem.
Okay, so
Um,
you do have 3 minutes, and just let us know when you're ready to get started.
Oh, actually, what I was going to say was, I see. Actually, what I was going to say was, I'm perfectly comfortable with listening. So then the person that is interested in speaking can definitely take the floor on my behalf. Because I'm really interested in this conversation and Learn 24, which is a grant that my organization is working to get to a place where we can actually secure that funding. So yeah, I have no problem listening.
Okay, let's restart the clock.
Okay, thank you.
Elias, the floor is yours. Elias.
Hi, everyone. I really appreciate you having me today. And my name is Elias Benda. I'm the legislative assistant with Councilmember Fruman. As I said in the chat, I worked closely with DC Action, a number of commissioners and OST providers to help draft the universal out of school time legislation that we introduced at the end of last year. Apologies for not registering beforehand, and I don't have any prepared testimony, but I'm happy to write up my thoughts and send them along afterwards. I'm currently in MacArthur High School, if you couldn't tell, our newest high school in Ward 3. There's in the city, there's a SIT meeting happening right now. I just wanted to reiterate all of the points that Riley touched on regarding the legislation. I'll say I've heard and communicated with the Deputy Mayor for Education's office and their team, absolutely hear and understand their concerns, and by no means did we intend for the legislation to be seen as a mandate I think we see it as an iterative process. And so we look forward to working with the commission, the office, the deputy mayor for education, continuing to work with our out of school time providers to ensure that when we get a hearing and eventually hopefully pass the legislation, that it represents full and thoughtful engagement with everybody who's affected by it. And I just want to say at the time of drafting, we didn't have the strategic plan. The work you all did on that is really inspiring and very insightful for me. And I absolutely wish I had it prior to working on that legislation with DC Action, but just again, grateful for the work you all are doing. And I'm always here as a resource to connect on out of school time generally, especially when we see the budget next week and this legislation going forward. We're hoping we'll have a hearing shortly after the budget finishes. I will continue to ask Bijan to schedule that. And I put my email in the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, comments, concerns. And I would love to set up an additional time, if possible, to meet with the commission and the office, either together or separately, to discuss the bill ahead of a hearing and after. So thank you. And congratulations, Dr. Lowe.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for providing your impromptu testimony, because although you had not prepared that prior, it was definitely very relevant and effective. And I think you answered a lot of questions that commissioners may have had, so we definitely value your feedback. So thanks for stepping up and joining us. Commissioners, on that note, did you have any, does anyone have any questions or comments for Elias while we have him?
I would just add, this is Bijan from the chairman's office. I would just quickly say that we are hoping to hold a hearing on the bill in June. Obviously, the delay of the budget has pushed all of our schedules back a bit, but that's still our aim. And folks can also feel free to reach out to me as well if they have questions, comments, or want to talk further. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds good. Sounds good.
I have a question. I wanted to defer first in case anyone else wanted to speak, but I do have a question. Okay, so thank you for coming on, Elias. I do have a question for you all. So OST, particularly across government agencies, consists of the OST office, which is the largest grant-making entity in DC, but it also consists of OSCE, DCPS, DPR, etc. From my understanding, and please correct me if I am wrong, there was not much, if any at all, engagement with our offices as government agencies in the formulation of the universal OST legislation, which it happened, it is okay, but we want to move forward. Moving forward, whether it is by way of hearings, testimonies, etc., what steps are going to be taken into place to ensure that government agencies that provide OST programming are part of the legislation's formulation and are updates as needed?
I really appreciate that. And I will say, if I had the opportunity to draft this again, I would have done much more thorough engagement, both with the DME office and our other government agencies that do provide out of school time. However, as I said, this is absolutely a process that and a piece of legislation that will change between now and its final implementation. And so following the budget, I am more than happy to set up intentional meetings with the DME, who I've already had a number of conversations with some of their legislative staff, but also with the OST office and the OST commission. And I would honestly look to you all to help understand how best we should be engaging the government agencies that provide out of school time programming, because I think you probably have the right people to talk to at OSCE, at DPR, at DC Public Libraries. And so I want to be a resource in facilitating those conversations and acknowledging it doesn't start with a hearing. It absolutely will continue through a hearing, and it doesn't end after a hearing is held. So it's an open-ended process. And again, me being here and sharing my information is really because I do want to start that conversation where I recognize there may have not been sufficient conversation before. But I thank you very much for that question.
And Dr. Lowe, this is Bijan again. I would just add in terms of process, when we have the hearing, we'll almost certainly ask you to come testify along with the deputy mayor and folks over at OSSI who oversee out of school time programming. I would also invite any members of the commission who want to testify that they all should and could play a key role in that. We often see that when we have issues related to, let's say, the public charter school board, members of that board will come testify as they see the issue is pertinent to them. And then from there, the committee takes those considerations that are brought up in testimony and works with the introductory staff. So that would be Elias in this case to take the bill through markup if we're planning on moving it forward. So there's plenty of opportunities to engage.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Definitely, thank you. And we also had a note. Actually, now we have a couple notes in the chat. Okay, looks like Shanna just answered the question, so thank you for that. All right, wonderful. So the next item on the agenda is the announcement of quorum. So we will be taking a roll call attendance for the record. And commissioners, so I'm going to go ahead and call your name. Commissioner Berkey?
Present.
Thank you. And I did see your note in the chat, so thanks. Commissioner Coates?
Present.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Desir? Look through the okay. Okay, looks like Commissioner Desir is absent. Commissioner Hanson?
Present.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioner Jenkins?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Lamparter?
Present.
Thank you. And I'm present. Commissioner Safran?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin?
Present.
Thank you. And Dr. Lowe, welcome back. So I can change that. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So we have made quorum. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 commissioners present. Excellent. Great. Okay. So we have met our quorum at 6:26 p.m. Commissioners, the next item on the agenda is to take a look at the agenda. Commissioners, please review this agenda and when ready, if one of you can make a motion to approve the agenda so we can move forward.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And who is that? Sorry, can you state for the record? Because I'm looking at the votes right now.
Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Okay, sounds good. All right, any seconds to that motion?
Commissioner Jenkins, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins. Okay, great. All right, and we do, let's see, okay. Second. Okay, great, thank you. Now we will take this vote in roll call style. Commissioner Berkey?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Coates?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson, I know you made the motion, but
Approve.
thank you. Commissioner Jenkins? I know you seconded it, but
Approved.
thank you. Commissioner Jones?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Lamparter?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Safran?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin?
Approved.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. The agenda is unanimously approved. Commissioners, if you can next take a look at the draft version of the meeting minutes for our January meeting, which has been provided. And, once you had a chance to review, please let us know if there are any changes or revisions to be made to the minutes. And if no changes, when ready, if we can get someone to please make a motion to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Berkey, motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Berkey. Okay. Any seconds to that motion?
Commissioner Hanson, I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Okay. Great. Okay. Commissioner Berkey, I know you made the motion, so I'm going to take that as approved.
Approve. Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Coates.
Approve.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hanson seconded the motion. Commissioner Jenkins.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Lamparter.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Saffron.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin.
Approved.
Thank you. Okay, great. So the minutes are unanimously approved. Thank you, commissioners. The next item on the agenda are our OST office updates. Looks like. Dr. Lowe, are you ready to provide us with the OST office updates?
I'm going to start us off. Thank you, Chair Peacock, and then I will hand the floor over to my esteemed colleague, Shanna. Thank you guys for welcoming me back. My name is Dr. Lowe, for those who have not met me, and we are now at a new and exciting juncture for our OST across government agencies, inclusive of the OST office. And so right now, we have the strategic plan in place, which we have approved and it has been engaged across multiple stakeholders. We have new and returning members of the OST Commission, which we are super excited about. We are now seeking to level set as the commission to make sure that we are as I tapped my mute button, sorry. We are now seeking to level set as a commission overall to make sure that with current and with returning and new commission members, with the new strategic plan, that we are as closely aligned as possible to the bylaws that have been at the core and at the foundation of the OST Commission. And so this meeting is going to be, hopefully everyone has reviewed the materials that we're sent a week in advance. We are going to be critically reviewing and providing context for today's conversation, thinking through where we have been, where we are, and also where we aspire to be as a collective. The OST Commission is not only the OST office, there are other OST providers across DC government. And so our goal, our vision, our purpose is to make sure we have a shared vision, that we manage expectations across government agencies, and that most importantly, that we align with the original purpose and intent of the OST Commission. And what I'm saying will make a lot more sense as we progress in today's meeting, but I did want to set that tone as to help everyone understand that we are really seeking to understand how we originated, what has led us to where we are, and most importantly, where we aspire to be across agencies as OST stakeholders and as OST providers and grant makers. I will open up the floor to you, Shanna, to kick us off.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lowe, and good evening, commissioners. You can see here that the purpose of the needs assessment, according to the bylaws, is to identify and prioritize needs for the out-of-school time programs and establish targets for out-of-school time funding and drive the goals of the strategic plan. Currently, the needs assessment takes place every year. As a recap, there was a previous request by Dr. Lowe to revise the bylaws to have the needs assessment take place less frequently so that the results of the needs assessment could be used to appropriately drive decision making, as so much time actually goes into the needs assessment and there is little time to actually and appropriately address those needs. The quality and needs assessment committees of the commission met and put forth a proposal during the January commission meeting to revise the bylaws to take place every other year or biennially. There was a counter proposal at that time that the needs assessment only be conducted every 3 years in alignment with the strategic plan. So we tabled it for further discussion during this meeting. The question at hand tonight is how often the needs assessment should take place. Should it continue to take place annually? Should we move to every other year or biennially? Or should it be every 3 years in tandem with the strategic plan? Please note that the next needs assessment, regardless, will need to take place next year, FY25, in order to be used during FY26 for the development of the next 3-year strategic plan, 2027 through 2030. And so here I just wanted to share with you the language of the current bylaws, and illustrated in red is references to the annual language that may be stricken if so determined by the commission and replaced with a new frequency if and as is determined in green. You can also see in green the addition of the progress report to be conducted annually if it is determined that the needs assessment should take place at any frequency less than annually. At this point, the OST office would like to propose that the next step be for the commission to go to vote on the frequency or how often the needs assessment should be conducted, and then based upon the results of a poll that we have that we can issue in the chat, the commission may then vote on whether to appropriately revise the bylaws to reflect this change in frequency. Are there any objections to this? Yes, Commissioner Berkey.
I don't have an objection, but I understood that the original proposal was for the progress report to be done in the alternating year. So in the original suggestion, it was needs assessment every other year, and then the progress report, data collection effort in the alternating years, rather than annually, because I don't think we intend to do a needs assessment and a progress report in the same year. Or do we? Is that what you're saying? We should do the progress report annually regardless?
I think that what you're making is a very good point, that I also do recall that it was in the every other year. We have decided to go ahead and do a progress report this year. But I'm thinking if we're rolling out a needs assessment, and at some point, if we do intend to use a vendor to do a much more expansive progress report across major, offices of the district and various agencies, then it would be something that where we wouldn't be also doing the progress report the same year as the needs assessment. So I think that you are correct in that it would not be annual, but in the off years. Dr. Lowe, or did anyone else have other thoughts?
I did want to underscore that the decision for a progress report, honestly, if we were to have a needs assessment this year, we would have need to have had a vendor in place by October 1 of last year, and which means we have had to solicit a vendor or do an RFA at least by May or April of last year. So logistically speaking, the ability to do a needs assessment is not realistic at this time. And also, please note, in prior years, we've had one needs assessment, though it was to be done every year. And so the progress report is one way of holding OST accountable in lieu of the needs assessment, given that logistically speaking, it practically cannot occur in this fiscal year at minimum.
And just to verify that the commission did vote last meeting in January not to do a needs assessment this year, but the determination on how often to do it and how often to do the progress report was to be tabled until tonight's meeting. Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, I was going to offer a friendly suggestion. I mean, it seems to me, and I think maybe I'm echoing what Commissioner Berkeley was getting at too, that the needs assessment would have to necessarily reflect the progress that we're making or not making. And I'm wondering if it's worth just sort of like clarifying that the needs assessment would, include a bit of a progress report. And therefore, we're still sort of getting an annual update, but it's not a standalone commitment that we're asking the vendor to, or a standalone deliverable from the vendor. I don't know if that makes sense to others.
Yes, if I understand, we would be doing one or the other with the vendor each year, no matter how often we're doing the needs assessment, and those off years doing the progress report. And then in the year that that we are doing the needs assessment, there may be some incorporation of, and I think appropriately so, any outcomes that have been generated in previous year progress reports.
Yeah, exactly.
Commissioner Berlin?
Would second what the previous commissioners had to share. I just also, I don't know exactly what the plan is for a vote per se, but I do think we should try to come to consensus rather than up and down vote as whether we're doing it biannually or triennially.
Commissioner Verlin, you're going in and out. Is it just me?
No, I can't hear very well either.
Oh, sorry. If it doesn't work, I can put this in the chat. But I was just saying, I think we should try to come to consensus on whether we do it the needs assessment every other year or every third year, rather than an up and down vote.
I'm sorry, so
So
you think we should do what?
Sorry.
Come to a consensus.
Okay.
If I heard you right, Commissioner Berlin, you were saying we just need to come to a consensus on how often we're doing it so that we can move forward. Was that what you indicated, or did I miss it?
That's also what I heard.
Sorry, that's right.
In the chat.
Okay, well, if we are ready to go, we can go to vote. And without further ado, I would actually like to introduce our new manager of data and evaluations, DeAndre Garrison. DeAndre, if you can just say hello, and then if you will proceed to post the poll regarding the frequency of the needs assessment. And once we have voted on that, then we can go to vote on the change of the bylaws.
I'm sorry. I think Commissioner Berlin was saying the opposite. I think he was saying that he wanted us to discuss 2 or 3 years and then see if we could come to a consensus without having a vote. I'm also in favor of that.
My apologies.
I will say just, sorry, hopefully I'm not jumping the queue, just to put my cards on the table. I'm strongly in favor of doing it every other year biannually rather than every 3 years. I think it just holds us accountable. If there, heaven forbid, is ever a delay, it means we're never more than a year off from completing the needs assessment. And I think given the realistic yet ambitious goals that we have set in our strategic plan, it'll be a really good motivator for us to measure the progress that we're making and also figure out maybe where we need to pivot or change.
I second that completely. A lot can change in 3 years, as we've seen over these past few years with the scope of things with the pandemic. So I'm on the same page with you, Commissioner Hanson.
I am actually.
Commissioner Berkey?
Oh, go ahead. Am I?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Safran wanted to say something. You can go first.
Commissioner Berkeley, you can go first. I'm good because it won't lose. I got it.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that when the quality committee met about this, we felt that it was important to do the needs assessment every other year and the progress reports in the alternating years, partly to just keep measuring progress on some of the initiatives of the office, but also to give us that opportunity to dig deeper into questions that merited a little bit more exploration based on the results of the previous needs assessment. So this year, the questions that we presented at the last meeting included a deeper dive into some of the services for students with special needs, which was one of the areas that seemed to be a major priority for the city, but also as an outgrowth of the needs assessment. So, and the committee, our quality committee felt that it was important to just do that every other year and to allow that opportunity as well.
I just wanted to put something in the chat really quickly. And I have no saying this because I'm not a voting member. I'm just wondering if you could do both. There are some people who may not necessarily want to be as verbal in the meeting and who may prefer to vote. So perhaps you can do both, reach a consensus, sorry. And then once everyone has heard everyone else's thoughts, then they can make an informed decision on what they want to occur going forward. And then you can vote by way of a poll. I'm just throwing that out there for those who may not feel as comfortable speaking out loud. And again, I have no stake in the matter because I can't vote. Just being mindful of how people like to show up. Some like to show up verbally, some like to show up in writing.
Yeah, Dr. Lowe, I think that's an excellent point, especially for something that is this big, because making this change doesn't just impact us, but it impacts the city as a whole. So I think for the sake of at least doing things by the book and having that documented, it does make sense to have a vote. So we have the formal decision.
Commissioner Saffron.
Thank you. So I'm listening to the comments around the every other year, and the first thing that's coming to my mind is this is a huge undertaking to do a needs assessment. And it takes a long time in order for it to take place. So we're talking about, as Dr. Lowe was saying in the beginning, starting in April to get someone to actually be contracted to do it, and then they have to collect all the data, and then they need to analyze it. So it's almost a year process for us to get back data, right? And so if we're doing that every other year, I guess I'm trying to figure out when we're actually doing the work part of it, because so much time is devoted to collecting the data. And if the purpose of it is for us to use it to help us to develop the strategic plan, then I think like the every 3 years and the data that you're collecting when we're not doing a needs assessment, I think you still will be able to gather what it is that you're looking for based on what I'm hearing, because we're still going to have data that we're going to be able to analyze, but it's not going to take as long to collect that data as it would to do a full needs assessment. And so that's why I was thinking every 3 years. And we're not even talking about the cost of getting someone to do the the cost of the RFA to get that done too. So I'm really concerned about what is the biggest bang for our buck. And I heard that some things change like every year, especially since like the pandemic, and I completely agree. But the data we're collecting in between, we'll still be able to see some of those things. And that data that we're also getting in between will help us to determine whether or not we're moving towards the goals within the strategic plan. And we don't need a needs assessment to actually be able to do that.
Commissioner Hanson.
I think the questions that the previous commissioner raised are really important ones. And I think in large part because I think of the concerns that you raised, to me, I feel like it makes me want to see the needs assessment every 2 years, in part because the last time that I think one was completed was maybe 2017 or 2018 by the DC Policy Center. And then we had to wait till about 2023, I think, to see the next report come out. It was a very wide span and so much had changed in between. And I think that made it difficult. I know I heard it from council members. We've heard it from folks in the OST coalition, others, that it made it difficult to figure out where is the best place to allocate resources for out of school time in the district. And my hope or goal that by having a needs assessment every other year, that we would be better able to inform the budgeting process too that council members undertake, so they can think about how much more resources we need to be able to allocate to really meet the needs of students and families across the district. And hopefully we can be relying on a regular vendor so they don't have to start from scratch each time that they produce a report, and that the data would be it'd be a much smoother data collection process.
Commissioner Berlin?
I just want to start out by saying I'm in favor of doing it every other year. The progress report in the off years. I'm very sensitive to like the elegance of, you have your strategic plan every 3 years, so that you have a progress report that informs that, and that's neat and easy. And I'm not opposed to that in theory. I do worry about us going from 1 year to every other 3 years, and the amount of time it'll take to decide if we need another adjustment, rather than it'll be we can iterate on essentially like how well we think this is working every other year much faster. If, in 2 cycles, we think, what, this still is more information than we need, then we can make a change rather than having to wait 6 years, for example,
I would
before
like to
making another change.
I would like to level set this conversation in reality. The last OST Commission needs assessment was completed at the inception of the OST office, and we are now 6 years in. This is the second needs assessment. So we have not been doing it every year as we should have been. So to me, 3 years is better than what should have been, because in reality, we were not adhering to the 1 year requirement. So I'm not clear on why there's inertia or apprehension when the last assessment was 6 years ago. And also, please know, I'm going to ground this in reality. Completing the needs assessment is a minimum. Dr. Safran said about 1 year is a minimum. And that's being very gracious and ambitious. 1 year to get a vendor, to collect the data, to engage all of the stakeholders, families, parents, government agencies, nonprofits, etc., and then to compile and use that data as we move forward. So let's ground it in reality. The last needs assessment was at the inception of the OST Commission. This is the second one that we have done in its 6 years of existence. And then also the practicality of the logistics around that, because the last needs assessment was led by the OST office. The next needs assessment, from my vantage point, needs to engage. And yes, we granted engaged as we could, best we could, the other agencies. But the next needs assessment, from my vantage point, needs to engage all OST government agencies, which will be a cost and logistical factor as well, and will then increase the length of time needed to actually do it on the ground.
Dr. Lowe, I hear you on the cost factor. However, I would like to also remind the commission that a lot that led to that needs assessment getting drawn out and stretched out was due to the pandemic and a lot of nonprofits being shut down and allowing more time. I would also like to add in the fact that, I would think that 3 years would be perfectly fine if we were doing something like zoning or, anything else. But because this is impacting children and their futures and their outcomes, I do think it's a bit more critical to be able to catch things in more real time. So I personally am in favor of the every other year instead of going straight to 3 years. But I do like Commissioner Hansen's point about being able to, or maybe it was Commissioner Verlin, but being able to, try the 2 years and then make an iterative decision to then later move to 3 years if we see things moving okay. But that's my opinion on it.
I just have one question just to clarify my mind. What information do we think that we're getting from the needs assessment that we wouldn't get from the progress report? Because I'm trying to figure out what the difference between the two are, so that to understand why every other year we need to do a full depth involving everybody to do a needs assessment, as opposed to having all the agencies provide information about how we're progressing towards the strategic plan. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, the needs assessment is going to provide us what that we will need in order to know if we're being successful with the strategic plan, as opposed to the progress reports.
If I can try to respond to that, I think, it's a valid point in that the progress report is trying to answer what is being demonstrated as needs, so that it is the same data if we're looking, for example, in the needs assessment at what youth are being served, the progress report is telling us what youth are being served. So it's just a different way of looking at things that's using the actual data from a vantage point of the feedback from the providers in real time versus a broader assessment of that data.
I have to say, I also thought the needs assessment, okay, so the progress report was more of a snapshot data capture, whereas I thought the needs assessment was going to do the type of analysis of data that we wouldn't be trying to do within the OST office, you know, capacity of the personnel there. It would be like, for example, the needs assessment not only looked at where the youth were being served, but where their residence was and where that, you know, it took a lot of demographic data from the city and coupled it with the data that had been captured through OST service providers. And so that I think that level of analysis is something that we would expect from the needs assessment that we wouldn't expect from the progress report. And I also think that the needs assessment would potentially take a broader, make a larger attempt to collect data from providers outside the government sector, whereas the progress report was going to be really kind of driven by, you know, capturing information from the major OST provider organization agencies in the government, like, you know, the big ones.
To use an example, if I can try to capture what you're saying, Commissioner Berkey, is where the progress report may show that, you know, the percentage of students that we're serving with disabilities isn't meeting the need. The needs assessment may more broadly ask, why aren't we meeting the needs of students with disabilities? What is the barriers in place across providers that are preventing them from serving those students? So it's a broader look at the assessment of the data that is provided in the progress reports.
Right. And Riley's also pointing out in the chat that it captured, because there were focus groups with providers and parents that were part of it, it elucidated needs that were captured other than through just pure number counting, you know, through the focus groups and that sort of thing in the needs assessment.
This is my last question on this, just because I just want to make sure, like I said, I understand everything before I actually have to vote. This data from a needs assessment that we're getting every other year, how are we using that data? Are we using it to change the strategic plan? Are we using it to help us write the next one? I'm always about, I don't want to collect information just to collect it. How is it going to be used? And do we need it every other year in order to be able to make the changes needed based on what we already know from the progress reports? That was
Can
my
I
last
speak?
question.
Can I speak to that question, because
Sure.
we literally have a live, like real time example of that. So we had a needs assessment that was completed last year. That needs assessment, I can speak for our office specifically, the OST office. As a result of the findings, we are now more concentrated and focused in on students with special needs, students who are L learners, etc. That is our proof point for our competitions for FY24. We will not see the results or the full demographic picture of the students served until the end of FY24, which is September 30. If we do it off and on year, technically speaking, we should be doing a needs assessment very shortly, but that would not take into consideration the findings from this fiscal year, because it doesn't end until September 30. So we do use, well, our office, the OST office, does use the needs assessment, but to use it effectively, it takes us a minimum of 1 year cycle to collect the data to see where we are. And we can't see where we are until the data is collected at the end of FY24, and then look again towards FY25. If that's the case of doing another needs assessment, that will be done at the same time, we're learning from the needs assessment from the last fiscal year cycle, and it's being done simultaneously. While we haven't even known yet what the effects of the needs assessment are in the subsequent fiscal year. Hope people are following what I'm saying, but
They
it will be
overlap. Yeah.
yes, a lot of overlap.
Commissioner Hanson?
You know, I was going to say, if the concern is about, you know, when the data becomes available at the end of the fiscal year, I feel like it's worth having a conversation about the timing for when we'd want to do an every other year needs-based assessment. Like, do we want to have it try to come out in the fall or in January, you know, at the start of the calendar year, so that we would have all of the data from the previous fiscal year. I'd be very interested in hearing from other folks who are in favor of having it every other year, but I do think the data every other year, as Commissioner Peacock was saying, like, because we're talking about kids, we're not talking about, you know, zoning that might need to be updated once every 10 years. Like, kids' lives, families' lives, you know, change so fast. I think it's really important for us to have, you know, maybe not a real-time understanding of what families' needs are across the district, but, you know, every other year seems reasonable to me. And then I think it's also not just for us, though it will certainly be, I think, incredibly helpful for us in terms of informing future strategic plans, but also I really do look at it as a public resource and tool, and something that we want to make available to the community, to families, so they can understand whether or not we as a district are meeting our obligation to children and youth. And then I think it's also informative for folks who work on this on a policy level. And when it's every 3 years, it's, I think, more difficult to have it be as useful, I think, as we would like it to be.
Okay, well, are we ready to go to vote?
I wouldn't frame it like that. I want to say, even before that, are there any other thoughts that needs to be shared? Because people have shared their views and concerns, their preferences, which we welcome. And if everyone is well informed and want to make their vote specifically after hearing everyone's position, again, I have no stake in this because it ultimately is the commissioner's choice and the majority from a valid point speaks. But if you guys feel like we've had enough conversation on this, then we can move to having heard the different viewpoints now to another way of kind of like speaking or sharing your thoughts by way of a vote.
Commissioner Verlin did have a point in the chat.
Any other thoughts or concerns that people feel comfortable sharing publicly?
I just want to note that Commissioner Lamparter has put a couple of comments in the chat that I think are important because she is sort of speaking similarly to Commissioner Saffron. Maybe you want to, are you unmuting?
I've just unmuted. I have a little bit of a cold, so I've been using the chat. But I mean, I am newer to the commission, so I don't feel I have the expertise that others do in this group or the background knowledge. But I mean, I think I was echoing a lot of what Dr. Saffron said, just from an evaluation standpoint, and we do a lot of evaluation and development evaluation at my work, that by the time it takes X amount of time to collect the data and to then make a change and see how the change is implemented, you don't have that space to do that if you're constantly planning for the next round of assessment. So to me, 2 years just seemed, from an evaluation standpoint, very fast. If you're still able to collect without doing the full needs assessment, you can still collect information every year and data from families, because somebody had put in the chat about providers and parents, which it seems like happens anyways. A full needs assessment every 3 years, to me, in combination with still collecting feedback from providers and parents, sufficient. And I think that, yeah.
And just to add on to what Commissioner Saffron said, like, what are we doing with this data? It seems to me that all the conversations around the data is around the children, but how are we communicating with the community? I think that's kind of what is lost. Like, yes, we can collect the data, and we can find out how the families are doing in these OST programs and how the OST programs are doing. But I think continuing to collect data so soon is not really addressing the problems. Actually going out to the community, and that's kind of like the answer to what are we doing with the data. If we are proactive as a commission with engaging with the community, that will kind of solve that need to want to collect data every other year and actually have data collected triannually instead with the progress reports, because we are actively engaging with the community and being proactive with what's going on. And it's not, to me, it's not waiting 3 years to find out. It is if you're not actively engaging, if you're not being proactive. So if all you want to do is collect data and look at it, then sure. But if we are actively engaging, then every 3 years seems like it would be sufficient.
We have been having an extensive conversation on this. I want to encourage you to kind of move the conversation forward whilst also honoring people's views, thoughts, and opinions. Is there anyone who is opposed to going to a vote at this time after hearing? Well, let me pause. Commissioners wanted to do a consensus. I propose a vote to kind of have multiple ways of sharing your views. But I leave that into the commissioners' hands because you guys will be the ones that will be voting on it. So if you want to go the consensus route, by all means, but I recommend giving different people's way of communicating, that multiple avenues be given to share their views, whether it is by consensus or listening in, and it doesn't have to be or by vote. I will defer to Chair Peacock and the commissioners.
Yeah, Dr. Lowe, on that point, and I see Commissioner Berkey has her hand raised, as well as Commissioner Jones, so I'll let you both speak as well, but it's my opinion that we should do a vote since it sounds like there isn't consensus.
I just had one question before we vote, just so I understand. So if the proposal for, I guess, somebody please define the frequency of the progress report in the scenario where the needs assessment is done every 3 years. Is it 2 years progress report, 1 year needs assessment, 2 years progress report, 1 year needs assessment? Okay, great. Thanks.
So which direction are we going in, Chair Peacock? It could be either way, we are fine, and if we do have a vote, DeAndre will bring it up for us. Just let us know what direction you want to go in.
I think we should go ahead and take a vote. Sounds like this is not a clear-cut unanimous decision, so I'd like to see, all the opinions of the commissioners weighed out, especially for something this important.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the poll in the chat, and can I have everybody, once they finish voting, raise their hand? And I'll share the results afterwards.
Okay. One moment. Voters are commissioners only and no one else. So please, if you're not a commissioner, this vote is not for you.
Commissioner Saffron. Dr. Saffron.
He said, put your hand out when you vote. I did.
Oh, gotcha.
I was following directions.
And we will be going back. We'll report out the results immediately after, but we will go back and make certain that only commissioners voted after the fact.
Do you need any support, DeAndre?
No, it was just a few more votes coming through.
Okay.
Commissioner Saffron, it looks like your hand went down.
Okay. I think that's everybody. So we do unfortunately have a tie. We have a tie between every 3 years and biannually. So did you want to redo the vote as we discussed before that if we got a tie, or how would you want to do this? I can go ahead and put the results in the chat as well.
There is legislation around this, but Chair Peacock, whatever you guys decide.
Is the legislation that Dr. Lowe has the deciding vote? What is
Yes,
the
it is.
legislation?
From what I remember,
I
yes,
thought
it
that
is,
it
but
was.
I'm trying to pull it up right now to not misquote myself.
I believe that is the way the legislation is written.
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
your
I have
call.
a feeling I know what Dr. Love's gonna vote, but I'll defer to the
It's your call,
legislation.
but I will defer to the commissioners because this is
I'll
not
def-
my.
I'll defer to the legislation. We can do it by the book, Dr. Lowe.
Sorry, could I actually flag? I'm actually really surprised by the results because we have one vote for annually, which I was not expecting to see. And I think if it's strictly between, I guess I feel like annually probably leans more towards biannually.
That's
And I don't want to make that, I don't want to be presumptuous there, but if we revote, I prefer that we vote with only two options, biannually or every 3 years. Because if it was split down the middle, I'd say that's a little more tricky, but someone who's voted annually, I guess.
I agree with that one. Yeah, if I was thinking they were tied between the two of them, total split, but
Is that okay with you guys if we do that? Because DeAndre can really, if you give him a couple of minutes, DeAndre can you, DeAndre, let me not speak for you.
Yes, just give me a few seconds. I'm redoing that poll to get rid of the other option and deleting the previous results.
Thank you so much for
commenting. Okay. Sounds good.
Looks like Commissioner Bertland may have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Berlin.
Oh, sorry. No, I think my hand's just left out from the last one.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Can I pause? Are there any objections to what just occurred? I don't think there was a space for others to share their thoughts. And if not, proceed.
The only thought I would have is, I guess, whoever voted annually, they want it annually. So I don't know.
Okay, wrapping up. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna put it back in the chat now.
Thank you. Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And again, please raise your hand once you've voted.
The options are only annually, biannually, or abstain.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm confused.
We need biannually.
Oh, we need every 3
Every
years.
Every 3 years.
Biannually. Give us a moment as we troubleshoot in real time, because we want to be responsive to you guys' requests.
Thank you.
So biennial, and then every 3 years.
It's rare to find a group of people who care so deeply about data collection.
And so we can welcome our new data and evaluation manager. Thank you very much, DeAndre, for doing this for us.
Problem. Okay, so I'm gonna put the survey back in here. Now, since we went ahead and published that poll, it's not going to allow for me to go back and add in every 3 years. But what I did was I selected that respondents can put other, and then you can type in every 3 years if you wish.
you want to say
All right.
something when we're done, or
I see that. I see that everybody's done. I'm going to put the results in the chat. All right. So we have 66% with biannually. That's our top answer.
Okay, commissioners, thank you for voting. All right, commissioners, so it looks like it has been approved to complete the assessment biannually. So thank you again, commissioners. We will reflect, or we will update the bylaws appropriately to reflect this change in the frequency. Let's see. And the next item on the agenda is the OST office updates for Furman's Universal OST bill. Shannon, are you ready for this item?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
as we had discussed, I previously provided the commissioners with the proposed bill and the DME response to the bill and asked that each of the committees of the commission review and discuss during the February committee meetings the proposed bill. And while there had been a suggestion during the previous committee meeting for the OST Commission to take a position on this bill, I've also heard echoed through many of the committee meetings that the commission should support the position of the DME. So that's why that was provided as well for discussion. At this point, we want to just open it up to discussion. If any commissioners have a strong point of view that they would like to make in support of or against the bill, any components of it, or any position that is believed that the commission should or should not make, we can do that now. Also, please feel free to share your thoughts on the stance that the commission should take in general in regards to any new or pending legislation. Looks like Commissioner Hanson, you have your hand up.
Thank you so much. I just want to say I am super excited about the legislation that Councilmember Furman has introduced, and I'm really proud of the work that this commission did in our strategic plan to set these, I think, really ambitious yet achievable goals. And I think the universal out of school time bill is going to be a real asset and driving force to help us realize our strategic plan. And so from my perspective, we're an independent commission. I think it's important that we put forward recommendations in terms of what we think would make for the strongest legislation and respond to feedback that has come up. It sounds like the quality committee has formulated some feedback or recommendations for the legislation. I don't think we should just take the position or support the position of the DME. I don't think we necessarily need to be, I don't want to look at it as sort of a binary choice. My hope is that we can spend some time ahead of whenever the hearing is scheduled. Sounds like it might be in June, so we could use April and May to really come together as a body and make some recommendations and show up in support of moving us to universal out of school time and strengthening the legislation. That's I don't have anything more formulated beyond that, but I think that this is a great opportunity and we should figure out how to make it the best legislation possible. And then work towards its passage.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Berkey. You're on mute.
Sorry about that, team. We did have a conversation about this in the Quality Committee meeting that was held on, I have to go back to the date, February 29th. And, I would agree that there were a lot of things that we really love about this, especially the focus on expanding out of school time offerings. I mean, that's phenomenal. But we had a couple of areas of concern, and one of them had to do with there is a statement in the bill that says that the office should develop in collaboration with the commission plans for assessing the quality of out of school time programs. And we had the feeling that perhaps the authors weren't as familiar as we wish they were with the quality assessment system that's been in use since the office was established. The OST office uses the Weikart Youth Program Quality Assessment as a process for determining how organizations are operating with regard to safety, physical safety, emotional safety, engagement of youth, and interaction between youth and between staff of the programs and the youth. And there are a lot of components to this thing. It is really the gold standard in out of school time program assessment around the United States. It's research based. It's been in use for over 40 years, and it allows an organization not only to do their own internal assessment, but for an external assessor from the Learn 24 consultant team to come to the program and implement the assessment process as well, so that you get an external view of your own program. And it allows you then to take the follow-on steps, which are to develop a quality improvement plan and to identify areas of training and professional development that your staff need. And so, it's actually really quite a significant effort of the office to undertake this quality assessment process. And so, I mean, we would like to see that just sort of removed from the legislation unless there are major issues with the system that does exist. And I want to harken back to Riley's comment earlier about the desire to have the office be able to expand site visits to get a better feel for what organizations are doing. And that's only feasible if, through this quality assessment system. The other thing that struck us as a potential area of concern was the limit on the office spending not more than 7% of its annual budget operations on office overhead. We weren't really sure what would be considered part of overhead and whether the functions of the Learn 24 Institute, which does handle the quality assessment system as well as all the training and the consulting process
Site visits. And site visits.
And site visits, right. They do all the site visits, they do all the assessments, they do the training. It just felt as though if we want to see, as the legislation also suggests, that the quality of programs be improved through professional development, aligned to the needs of providers, that putting a cap on the spending could end up backfiring in terms of or hamstringing the office and its ability to expand those functions of their work under the concept of overhead, because that's not a specific grant making use of the funds. So it also could force the office to continue to have to rely so heavily on contractors, because when you rely so much on contractors with the way the DC government procurement process works, everything can take so darn long that you end up delaying the work and never building the internal capacity to deliver the services that you need and want to deliver. So anyway, there were multiple concerns related to the quality function that came, that they grew out of that sort of cap of 7%. So those were our two major areas of concern, and we would love to be able to engage in more conversations with folks about these things, and we really thought it would be important to have that happen, as Dr. Lowe has suggested and invited. And that's it.
Any other thoughts?
I do really quickly, Shanna.
Yes.
Just wanted to lift up, I do see, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. Just wanting to lift up the limitations to funding for schools. Also advocating for our charter schools, they're already struggling to provide out of school time for their students, and they are able to, as of now, to apply on behalf of themselves as an entity. And so limiting that funding to them, because they're not, the legislation mentions that they won't be included as an entity that's harmful to to schools. So just wanting to lift up, but I do appreciate seeing that in the feedback.
Other thoughts? We are short on time, and we did want to get to a vote on the chair and vice chair, but please, if you have any thoughts, reactions, I saw that there was a posture of not taking a universal stance of the commission on this, but it'll be valuable to hear your feedback if you have any on this legislation, to help us kind of really understand what the pulse is on the ground, so to speak. And if not, we can move on.
Commissioner Hanson.
I don't want to be sort of premature in suggesting this, but it sounds like we're going to have a lot of ongoing conversation on this. And I guess I want to make a recommendation that we include this on the agenda for the next commission meeting so we can continue the conversation, because I found this to be informative. And I want to make sure that we keep the conversation going, because I think, the hearings is sort of the piece.
If there's no opposition to this, we will keep this on the agenda for the next meeting. And then we can move forward. And if there are objections, please elevate those right now for us moving forward, but also keeping this as an agenda item for our next meeting.
Okay, sounds like we can go ahead and continue moving forward.
Great. So the next is a very important and exciting opportunity for us tonight, and that is to vote on our new chair and vice chair. I have just listed here, according to the bylaws, the roles of the officers, and that we are to have both a chair and a vice chair, and these are the duties of those. I provided a copy of the bylaws in the materials that were sent last week, so if you want to reference this, but in lieu of time, I think that we can move forward with looking at and hearing from our nominees for both chair and vice chair. We want to provide the opportunity for our nominees to just share a little bit about why they are interested in this position. And for our chair position, we have our current chair, Chair Peacock and Commissioner Saffron, and then our vice chair nominees, which are Commissioner Jones and again, Commissioner Saffron. So we will start with just hearing from each of you, starting with Chair Peacock.
Oh, Commissioner Saffron, you can go ahead and go first with your speech.
Thank you. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
No, you could have gone. It's okay. Either way.
It's okay. I yield to you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Me too, right? Okay, so being selected for the chair or vice chair role of the Out of School Time Commission is, to me, not just an honor, but a crucial opportunity to make a significant impact on the lives of countless individuals within our community. Here are some of the reasons why I think I would be an ideal candidate. One, I possess a deep-seated passion for out of school time. I understand the pivotal role in shaping the future of our youth. I'm committed to ensuring that every child has access to high quality, enriching experiences outside of the regular school hours. My background and experience are uniquely qualified me for this leadership role. I've proven track record of working with the education sector, especially around developing and implementing effective OST programs. My expertise is in this field, and I also have effective communication skills, even though they don't seem like they're coming off right this second, but I do. I excel in articulating complex issues, building consensus, and advocating for policies and initiatives that benefit our youth. We all know that everything is changing on a regular basis. We've been talking about that all the time, and we need to also change as we are trying to address the needs of the youth. I like to believe that I'm a creative thinker who is not afraid to challenge the status quo and to explore new approaches to improve OST programming. My hope and goal is to bring a fresh perspective and ideas to the table. One of those would be around equity and inclusion that I think are paramount in ensuring that out-of-school time programs are accessible and beneficial to all children, regardless of their backgrounds and their education. I firmly believe in the power of collaboration and partnership. I'm committed to working collaboratively with fellow commission members, stakeholders, community members to drive meaningful change. I'm open-minded. I am receptive to diverse perspectives and dedicated to fostering a culture of inclusivity, respect, and transparency with the Commission. In conclusion, I believe that my passion, experience, leadership abilities, communication skills, commitment to innovation, dedication to equity, and my track record of results qualify me for either the chair or vice chair role in the Out of School Time Commission. I am ready and eager to take on the challenge and work collaboratively with the fellow commissioners to improve and make positive change and improve students' lives.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Saffron.
Thank you.
And now, Chair Peacock, if you would like to say a couple words.
Sure, yeah. First of all, Commissioner Saffron, thank you for sharing that background information about yourself. You definitely have a lot of experience, so I appreciate you taking the time to share all of that and your passion with the commission. Hey everyone, just to give you all a bit of background information on me for newer commissioners who have joined, my name is Walter Peacock. I've been the chairman of the OST Commission. I was one of the original commissioners on the commission. After the first year term, I was voted to serve as the vice chairman and then serve as the chairman, which I've held that role for 3 years now, which typically, as you'll see in the bylaws, it is something that's supposed to be an annual election. But we've had a lot of just changes due to the pandemic and things like that. So I've been, holding it down without a vice chair since Commissioner Holland's term had expired. Just to let you know about myself, I'm from Ward 7 originally, went to Howard University and took part in a lot of youth programs in DC. So have a lot of experience just, seeing how they've shaped me, how they've impacted my little sister. I'm a father myself, so I have a lot invested in wanting to see youth do a great job in the city. With that being said, I do think Commissioner Saffron is an excellent candidate, highly qualified, above qualified for this. So, with that being said, I just wanted to hear why you wanted to be the chairperson first. But with that being said, I'm happy to concede to you. I've had a great 3 years, but it's time for some change. So, congratulations to you and Commissioner Jones are both excellent candidates for the chair and the vice chair. So, I'm excited to step down from the throne and hand the reins over, and looking forward to the great things you both will accomplish. So thank you, and thank you all for a great 3 years. It's been a wonderful term serving.
We should still vote. Do we not think that, or no? To have it on record? I'm not sure. Any thoughts from commissioners?
Well, Chair Peacock, would you be okay with continuing?
I would be okay if I'm elected. I'm definitely not opposed. So I love this commission, but at the same time, I recognize that I don't want to just be like a dictator, just serving forever and ever and ever. So, but I'm certainly open to leaving it up to the commissioners. But with that being said, I'm highly confident in Commissioner Saffron and her experience.
So are you conceding, or are you saying you are open to serving again? If that is the wish.
I'm personally I'm conceding, but if we must do an election, and I'm voted, I'm open to it for sure. I wouldn't mind serving, but again, I'm highly confident in Commissioner Saffron, so I don't feel the need to continue controlling the ship, if that makes sense.
So we want what you want. We want to do what you want. What does Walter Peacock want to do? Not Chair Peacock.
Sure, yeah. I'll go ahead and concede to Dr. Saffron. I think she's highly qualified. She's a great person for the job, and she sounds extremely passionate about it. That's really why I wanted to hear what you had to say before I conceded. I'm confident in you, but I'm happy to hear why you want to do it instead of just your qualifications. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Commissioner Saffron and Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jones did not yet have the opportunity to share a bit about herself. So as you have been elected into this role, if you would like to share about yourself.
Yeah, I did have a speech.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All day to write it.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. My name is Andrea Jones, and I'm the newest commissioner on the board. While new to the OST Commission, I have been an OST advocate for children with special needs for over 5 years. In 2023, I became part of the Needs Assessment Committee, and through the committee, I provided input to the new strategic plan and future needs assessment questions. I then decided from there to become a commissioner. My goal in becoming a commissioner was to give a voice to the community in which I serve as an advocate and bridge the gap of communication between the commission and the community. As co-chair of the commission, I will work to assist the chair, adhere to the bylaws, and support the mission and strategic plan of the commission. I will assist with the goals in the absence of the chair to ensure the vision and work are not delayed. I believe it takes a team effort and an equitable voice to ensure the goals of the commission are carried out, and I am able to assist the co-chair in the co-chair's capacity to make it happen.
Well, again, congratulations to both of you. And thank you so much, Chair Peacock, for everything that you have done. I think I speak on behalf of the entire commission and the OST office when I say that we are so grateful for the years that you kept us afloat and led this commission. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your excellent leadership, helping me prepare for the meetings. And thank you as one of the other, I think it was Commissioner Berlin had mentioned, thank you for leading the ship when Dr. Lowe was out. So, you've really been doing an excellent job stepping up, going above and beyond. And commissioners, I appreciate you all for a great time. I'll still be here and still, be a leader within the commission, but, I don't need to be the one, formally running everything to be able to do that. So, congratulations, Commissioner Saffron, and congratulations, Commissioner Jones, or Chairperson Saffron and Vice Chair Jones. Congratulations to you both. I'm looking forward to your leadership. And thank you for the comments, Commissioner Berkey and Dr. Lowe and Commissioner Hanson. We really appreciate
We
you.
were all ready to vote. We were all geared up like, DeAndre, have the votes ready.
We were all set. Yeah.
No, thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Chairman Peacock, I hope this doesn't mean that you're leaving the commission, though. I hope you're still part of the commission. No, okay, good.
No, I'll never, until they kick me out, until they have to drag me out of office to leave the commission.
Thank you, because you really led us through some challenging work. Lots of points of view. You kept the calm, you kept it moving. You really, you got us through challenging times as well as challenging work. And I really appreciate your leadership.
Thank you very much. That means a lot, especially coming from you. I appreciate it. And being one of the original commission members, so thank you. That means a lot for sure. Well, I appreciate you. But yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. I understand when it's time for change, and this sounds like a great time because I know the commission will be in great hands. So, glad to have two excellent candidates that I can feel confident passing the reins over to. Yep.
Hey, well, should we continue on the agenda?
I messaged you. We need to wrap it up. Let's end on a high note, and then we can continue the other items at our next meeting.
Well, what I was going to suggest, if it's okay with you, I know the governance committee was going to suggest that we have a special meeting. And we were going to dig into the overview of the legislation that was provided tonight a little deeper. So perhaps that can be the time to do that. So do we want to discuss at this point having a special meeting in April? Is that possible to do, or should we defer that?
So really quick context, commissioners, we wanted to have a conversation with you all about Shanna. Give the context. I'm blank.
Okay, yeah. So looking at the legislation that established the office and the commission, the 2016 Act, as well as the bylaws, there was a lot that was done in the initial years that had to be done to, build up and build out an office and the commission's initial work. But as we look at it, we are kind of off track in many areas of from what the spirit of the legislation was, especially as it is related to cross-agency collaboration and leading the ship across the district. Currently, we do a lot of overviews of what the OST office is doing, but not more of the comprehensive OST landscape. And so the governance committee has been really looking at the legislation and the bylaws to identify where we are on track and where we are off track. And so to lead us back on course. And so we were going to provide an overview tonight of the legislation, just as kind of a 101 for our commissioners. And then they were going to suggest as next steps a special meeting that would take place in April for in person for the commissioners to kind of dig a little deeper into the expectations, the roles and authorities of the commission and the standing committees moving forward. So if it is okay, we can discuss the possibility of having that meeting. We can follow up with a poll to select when is the best time for that meeting. Again, hoping for it to be in person, several hours of a day to strategically work together as a commission on determining how to move forward.
And what we can do, thank you, Shannon, what we can do is, well, the first question is, we would like to have a meeting in April to specifically discuss the OST Commission, to kind of level set, like I mentioned earlier, to kind of ground us in what we were originally established to do. So the question is, are you all amenable to our April meeting? If yes, we will send out a poll to figure out the dates, the times. Do you want it to be in person or online? So the first question at hand is, are you amenable to an April meeting to specifically discuss the origin, governance, foundations of the OST Commission? We're curious to hear your thoughts, yay, nay, and if so, we will then have a poll subsequent to this meeting to gauge when would be the best date for that to occur. Commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I'd love us to have that conversation in April, and I'd also just like to make the friendly amendment that we carve out a little bit of time, not to come to a formal position, but just to talk through Councilmember Fruman's legislation a little bit, even if we're just setting aside half an hour to talk about that. If the hearing is potentially in June, we have very few opportunities to discuss. And then I wanted to just, while I have the floor for a second, bump the message in the chat that for the May Commission meeting, I'd like to have us invite Councilmember Fruman and staff to hear from folks on the commission our thoughts on the legislation.
Absolutely, thank you. Admit a note of that. Any other thoughts on any objection to an April meeting that's focused specifically on governance and Fruman, potentially? We will send out a poll for the dates post this meeting. Any objections to a special April meeting?
I agree with what Commissioner Berkey said. I think she made a great point. But with that being said, aside from April being busy, I do second everything that Commissioner Hanson said. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Can we get a sense of, in general, if we're talking about evening, daytime during work hours, or a weekend? Does anyone have any strong feelings?
We're not doing weekend. I'm going to draw the line right there.
Okay. Well, that's the strong feeling I was looking for. So we're talking about during the week, during working hours or evening hours.
I mean, it might depend on how many hours you were talking about. I know.
Yeah, it also depends on the day. As you know, in terms of the governance committee, like certain times during the day are undoable for me. But you know, if it works for the rest of the commission, I'm open to listening in and voting via poll. But other than that, I personally at least would say the evenings are easier. We could even do a little bit earlier if we need to, but you know, that's for me at least. Commissioners, feel free to share your opinions on that.
Good point, Commissioner Hanson. If there are any weeks that are absolutely not for you, can you please email learn24@dc.gov to let us know? Hold on. Just email us so we can say, I can't do the week of April 15th, I can't do the week of April 1st, so we know for specific commissioners what is non-negotiable for them, and then we will try to work around you guys' schedules. So what will happen as we move forward is that we will attempt to schedule a special meeting to focus on governance, and then also the Fruman bill, We will send out a poll to indicate your interests and availability. Please email learn24@dc.gov if you know for sure a specific week or a day or time frame does not work for you as a commissioner. And then that will be shared with myself so we can coordinate with DeAndre to create a poll and send out to you all to let us know when works best for you. When we get the consensus, we will then set up the meeting and then we will move forward from there and work in partnership with the new chair, Chair Saffron, on the special meeting that's coming up. Got it, Commissioner. So please make note of those dates. The note taker for Commissioner Hanson and Commissioner Berkey. So they both can't make April 15th to 24th, so that will likely be out. Shanna, where we are, the last.
Yep. I don't, are we going to,
we are
not
going
to do any addition.
we are going to do communication via email. We're going to ask commissioners, and if there's any objection to this, please let me know. We are asking commissioners to, number one, email us at learn24@dc.gov if there are specific weeks that don't work for you. We already know that it doesn't work. April 15th doesn't work for Commissioner Berkey and Commissioner Hanson, so that will likely be out. If there are any specific days that do not work for a specific commissioner, email us at learn24@dc.gov. And we will also send out a poll to commissioners to figure out what day and time works best for you. And then we will schedule a meeting well in advance for the one that works best for most people, meaning commissioners.
Gotcha. I'm good on that. I was just wondering if we're doing any additional updates or if we're adjourning at this point.
But I move that we adjourn at this point.
Okay. Are there any seconds to that motion?
Commissioner Berkey seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Berkey. Okay. Commissioners, as we are quite a bit over time, in lieu of the typical roll call vote, are there any that oppose this motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'm opposed. I'm just kidding. Let's get out of here.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Okay, well, it looks like this meeting has unanimously been approved to adjourn. So
wait,
thank
I have
you.
one more thing.
Sure.
Just kidding. April Fools in advance. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Well, thank you, commissioners. Again, it's been an excellent time serving and leading as the chair. I'm looking forward to continuing to contribute as a typical commissioner. So thank you again, Dr. Saffron and Commissioner Jones. Definitely looking forward to your leadership. If there's any questions you have, feel free to use me as a resource. I don't need to be the one with the keys driving the car to help the car get to the right place. So, definitely still looking forward to contributing to the commission, and thank you all for your time and, respect. I had a great time, and I appreciate all the very kind words and sentiments in the chat. That definitely made my day. So thank you all. Take care.
Commissioner Saffron, you motion to adjourn? Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joined us, Dr. Kelly.
All right. Well, thank you all and good night.
Good night, everybody.